Ladies and gentlemen, you see, life is like a game of chess. It's not about making the move first, it's about making the right move. So when you stop trying to contact someone, what happens? Well, let's talk about that tonight. The first thing I want you to understand is the power of space. Giving someone space is like hitting the pause button in a relationship. It allows both people to reflect on what truly matters. A man often responds to that space with thought. He starts to think about what he's lost, what he might be missing, and whether he's taking you for granted. Now, let's dig into human nature and the chase. Have you ever noticed that when something becomes less available, it suddenly feels more valuable? It's not just a cliche, it's a fundamental part of psychology. When you stop reaching out, it creates curiosity. That curiosity can turn into appreciation, or at the very least, a reassessment of your worth. But this isn't just about him. No, no, no. This is about emotional independence. You've got to know your worth. When you stop chasing someone who doesn't reciprocate your energy, you send a message not just to them, but to yourself, that you respect your time, your heart, and your peace of mind. And here's the thing, your absence can change his perception. You see, people often don't value what they have until it's gone. When you step back, it gives him a chance to see you in a different light, to see the strength in your silence, to recognize the person who won't settle for anything less than mutual respect. Now, let's be clear, there's a big difference between healthy communication and over-persistence. If you're constantly texting, calling, reaching out, what you're really saying is, I need your validation. But when you stop, when you go silent, it forces him to decide. Does he want to reach out? Does he care enough to make an effort? Space is often misunderstood in relationships. When someone says, give them space, it might sound like a polite rejection or a way to push someone away. But in reality, space is one of the most powerful tools for fostering growth, clarity, and understanding in any connection. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a friendship, or even a professional dynamic, space creates an environment where genuine feelings and priorities can surface. Think about this. When you're too close to a painting, you can't appreciate its beauty. You see smudges of color, rough textures, and details that don't make sense. But when you step back, the whole picture comes into view. The same principle applies to relationships. Constantly being in someone's space, physically, emotionally, or even virtually, can blur their ability to appreciate you. It's only when you step away that they can truly see your worth and the role you play in their life. For men, space is particularly impactful because it triggers a natural psychological response. Men, by nature, are problem solvers and thinkers. When you pull back, it creates a gap that they instinctively want to understand and in some cases fill. That gap gives them time to reflect on what they might be missing or losing. It allows them to ask themselves questions like, why haven't I heard from her? Or did I take her presence for granted? But here's the catch. Space isn't just about them, it's about you too. By stepping back, you create room for yourself to reflect. Sometimes, when we're too focused on reaching out or staying connected, we lose sight of our own needs and boundaries. Space gives you the opportunity to regain that perspective. It's a moment to ask yourself, am I chasing this connection because I value it, or am I afraid of losing it? The beauty of space lies in its ability to amplify authenticity. When you stop trying to force communication or connection, whatever happens next is genuine. If the person reaches out, it's because they truly care, not because they felt pressured or obligated. And if they don't reach out, that too is an answer. It shows you where they stand and frees you to focus on someone who values your time and energy. Another powerful aspect of space is its role in building mutual respect. By stepping back, you send a subtle yet profound message. I respect myself enough to prioritize my peace, and I respect you enough to give you room to figure out what you want. That kind of self-assuredness is magnetic. It draws people towards you, not out of obligation, but out of genuine interest and appreciation. Ultimately, space is not about creating distance. It's about creating clarity. It's about allowing both you and the other person to understand what truly matters. So, the next time you feel the urge to keep reaching out, remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back and let the silence speak for itself. Human nature is fascinating, especially when it comes to relationships and attraction. One of the most intriguing aspects is our tendency to value what feels just out of reach. It's a psychological principle rooted in scarcity. The less available something is, the more desirable it becomes. This idea plays a significant role in how people respond when someone pulls back in a relationship, and understanding it can empower you to navigate connections with clarity and confidence. Let's break it down. When you're constantly available to someone, whether it's through frequent calls, messages, or always saying yes to their requests, you risk becoming too predictable. Predictability can be comforting in certain situations, but when it comes to attraction and interest, it can lead to complacency. The brain craves novelty and challenge. If someone knows they can always count on your presence, they may unconsciously start taking you for granted, not because they're unkind or ungrateful, but because there's no sense of urgency to value what feels ever. Now, imagine the opposite scenario. You stop reaching out. You allow space for silence. Suddenly, the dynamic shifts. The absence of your consistent communication creates curiosity. That curiosity can lead to reflection. They start wondering why you haven't called or texted. They think about the last time you interacted and begin questioning if they missed something important. This process often triggers what psychologists call the reward uncertainty effect. When people can't predict your next move, their interest in you heightens because they're trying to solve the puzzle of your behavior. For men, this principle is especially pronounced because many are naturally drawn to the concept of the chase. It's not about playing games or manipulating someone's emotions. It's about understanding that men often find value in what they've worked for. When you pull back, you're not being petty or withholding. You're simply giving them the space to step up and demonstrate their interest. And if they don't, that's valuable information for you too. This isn't about control, it's about balance. The chase isn't just about making someone pursue you, it's about creating mutual respect. By stepping back and allowing them to decide whether or not to reach. Emotional independence is one of the most empowering traits a person can cultivate, yet it's often overlooked in relationships. Too often, people tie their sense of worth or happiness to how someone else responds to them, especially in matters of love and connection. However, true emotional independence isn't about rejecting relationships or connections. It's about finding fulfillment within yourself, so that your relationships are built on mutual respect and not dependency. Let's start with what emotional independence means. It's the ability to feel secure, whole, and at peace without relying on someone else to provide those feelings. It's recognizing that your happiness is your responsibility, not someone else's. This doesn't mean you don't care about others or that you don't need anyone in your life. Instead, it means you don't base your entire sense of self-worth on their attention, validation, or presence. When you stop trying to contact someone, you're taking an essential step toward emotional independence. It's a declaration that you value your own time and energy, and you won't let your peace hinge on someone else's behavior. This is particularly important in relationships where one person might feel They're always the one making the effort. When you pull back, it's not about being cold or distant. It's about setting boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. Emotional independence also allows you to approach relationships from a place of strength, not need. When you're emotionally dependent, you may overcompensate, chasing after someone's attention or approval because you fear losing them. This can lead to a cycle where the other person feels overwhelmed or even starts taking you for granted. But when you're emotionally independent, you bring a sense of balance to the relationship. You're not chasing after their validation because you already know your worth. This independence doesn't just benefit you, it benefits the relationship as a whole. When you're secure in yourself, you create space for healthy dynamics. Instead of clinging to someone out of fear, you can enjoy their company from a place of genuine appreciation. This shift in energy is often noticeable. People are naturally drawn to those who exude confidence and self-assuredness. It's not arrogance, it's an inner calm that says, I'm okay, no matter what happens. Cultivating emotional independence doesn't happen overnight, but it's worth the effort. Start by spending time with yourself. Rediscover your passions, goals, and interests that make you who you are. Practice self-care and focus on building a life that feels fulfilling even when you're alone. Surround yourself with people who uplift and support you, but don't rely on any one person to be your sole source of happiness. When you reach a point where you can stop chasing after someone without feeling anxious or incomplete, you'll realize how liberating emotional independence truly is. You'll see that stepping back isn't about giving up, it's about choosing yourself. And in doing so, you'll attract the kind of relationships where effort and respect are mutual. That's the power of emotional independence. It frees you to love and be loved from a place of strength, not need. One of the most profound and often underestimated effects of stepping back in a relationship is the shift in perception it creates, not only for the other person, but for you as well. Perception plays a central role in any connection because it shapes how we view ourselves, others, and the dynamics between us. By taking a step back and creating space, you allow both yourself and the other person to reassess the relationship from a clearer, more objective perspective. When you're constantly in contact with someone, whether it's through calls, messages, or making yourself available at all times, there's a tendency for the relationship to become habitual. The other person may begin to take your presence for granted, unconsciously assuming that you'll always be there, no matter what. This creates a scenario where your value is no longer recognized as something precious, but as something expected. The person may stop putting in the effort or may begin to overlook the little things you bring to the table. However, when you pull back and stop trying to initiate contact, the entire dynamic changes. The person begins to notice your absence. They might start reflecting on the last time you interacted, and the questions start to form in their mind. Why haven't I heard from them? What happened to all the constant communication? This absence, while uncomfortable at first, forces them to confront the void your absence creates. This perception shift can cause them to reassess their priorities, their feelings towards you, and even how they treat you. What often happens next is that the person starts to appreciate the connection in a new light. They might realize how much effort you were putting into the relationship and how much they may have taken that for granted. Sometimes, absence reveals the value of something in a way that presence cannot. It's like taking a break from a song you love. When you return to it, you appreciate its nuances and beauty all over again. More to the point, it's like taking a break from a song and a song away from you. Similarly, by stepping back, you allow the other person the chance to reflect on what they might be losing. They start to recognize the qualities that made you special, the qualities they might not have truly valued when you were always available. This perception shift is not just about how the other person views you, it's about how you begin to view the situation and yourself. By choosing to stop initiating contact, you assert that your emotional needs matter. You become aware that relationships should be mutual, where both parties invest time, energy, and care. This realization empowers you to prioritize yourself and your emotional well-being. You start to recognize that your worth is not contingent on someone's attention or approval. Additionally, stepping back can reveal whether the relationship was based on a genuine connection or if it was simply a convenience for the other person. If they don't make an effort to reach out or maintain the relationship, it's an indication that the connection might have lacked depth. However, if they begin to miss you and take the steps to reconnect, it shows that they truly value what you bring to their life. A perception shift is about creating space for clarity, growth, and realignment. It forces both people to take stock of their feelings, needs, and desires. It allows you to see where you stand in the relationship, and it provides the other person with the opportunity to appreciate you for who you truly are. This process can lead to stronger, more authentic connections based on mutual respect and appreciation, rather than habit or convenience. In any relationship, communication is the cornerstone. It's how we connect, understand, and build trust with others. But there's a delicate balance between healthy communication and overcommunication, and sometimes silence can be just as powerful as words. In the context of pulling back and ceasing contact, the choice to embrace silence is often misunderstood as avoidance or indifference. However, when used purposefully, silence is an incredibly potent tool for creating clarity, fostering mutual respect, and even prompting growth in a relationship. Let's start by considering the difference between communication and overcommunication. Communication is about exchange, a dialogue where both parties express their thoughts, feelings, and needs openly. It's a two-way street. But overcommunication, whether through excessive texting, calling, or even constant checking in, can lead to one person feeling overwhelmed or the relationship feeling more like an obligation than a genuine connection. Constant communication often stems from a place of insecurity, a need for reassurance, or a fear of abandonment. While well-intentioned, this kind of behavior can inadvertently create pressure and strain, especially if the other person is not equally invested in the same level of contact. When you choose to step back and allow for silence, you're not closing off communication completely, you're simply creating space. Silence doesn't mean ignoring the other person or withdrawing emotionally. It's about giving both yourself and them the opportunity to think, reflect, and process the situation without the noise of constant interaction. It allows for clarity to emerge, free from the emotional clutter that can cloud decision-making. For the person on the receiving end, silence can be a powerful wake-up call. When someone stops reaching out, it forces them to confront the absence and evaluate the relationship from a different perspective. It may trigger thoughts like, why haven't they contacted me? Do they no longer care? What did I take for granted? These questions can lead to introspection, helping them understand what they value in the connection and how much effort they are willing to invest to maintain it. But silence isn't about playing games or manipulating the other person into taking action. It's about creating a healthy dynamic where both parties can assess the situation without pressure. It's about allowing the relationship to breathe, rather than suffocating it with constant updates and notifications. When you stop reaching out, you're giving the other person space to make their own decisions, take initiative, and show whether they truly want to be a part of your life. For you, embracing silence also provides an opportunity for personal growth. It allows you to detach from the immediate need for validation and approval. It shifts the focus back to you and your own emotional needs. During this time, you can rediscover your own interests, goals, and passions, things that may have been sidelined by the constant effort to maintain contact. It reminds you that your happiness isn't dependent on someone else's attention. Moreover, silence helps establish boundaries. Sometimes, in relationships, especially those where one person is putting in more effort than the other, boundaries can become blurred. You might feel obligated to always be available, to always respond, and to constantly chase after the other person. By stepping back and embracing silence, you're reinforcing the importance of healthy boundaries. You're saying, I value my peace and I deserve to be respected. This creates a foundation for a more balanced and respectful relationship where both parties understand that time and energy are finite resources and they must be shared with care. Absence often carries a negative connotation. We tend to associate it with loss, distance, or a lack of something important. But when used in the right context, absence can be one of the most powerful forces for personal growth, self-reflection, and relationship development. In the realm of emotional dynamics and interpersonal relationships, growth through absence is not only possible, it's essential. By stepping back from a situation or connection, you allow space for both yourself and the other person to grow, recalibrate, and evolve in ways that would be difficult to achieve through constant contact or engagement. The first way in which absence fosters growth is by giving you the chance to reconnect with yourself. When we're constantly immersed in a relationship or always reaching out to someone, it's easy to lose sight of who we are outside of that connection. Our identities can become entangled with the other person's actions, desires, and expectations. This leads to dependency, where your sense of self-worth hinges on their approval, response, or presence. By pulling back, you break that cycle and create an opportunity to rediscover your own passions, interests, and aspirations, independent of anyone else. Think of it as a reset. Absence allows you to focus on your own goals and dreams without the distraction of constantly seeking external validation. You can explore new hobbies, reconnect with old friends, or dive deeper into your work or personal projects. This time away from someone doesn't create a void, it fills you with new energy, new ideas, and a renewed sense of self. The time you spend apart helps you recognize your own value, both within and outside of the relationship. Absence also fosters a sense of emotional resilience. When you're constantly in touch with someone, it's easy to rely on them for emotional support or validation. While there's nothing wrong with seeking comfort from those close to us, we also need to develop the ability to self-soothe and find peace within ourselves. Absence gives you the opportunity to work on this emotional independence. It forces you to confront your emotions head-on without leaning on someone else to ease your discomfort. In this process, you learn how to regulate your feelings, strengthen your emotional fortitude, and build resilience. Moreover, absence catalyzes perspective. Distance allows both you and the other person to see the relationship for what it truly is, without the emotional fog that constant proximity can create. It enables both parties to assess their needs, desires, and boundaries with greater clarity. For the person you're stepping back from, absence can trigger introspection. They begin to consider what they truly want from the connection and whether they are willing to invest the time and energy required to nurture it. Often, absence makes people realize what they're truly missing, and it pushes them to take action. On the flip side, for you, absence brings a clearer view of whether the relationship is serving your needs or whether you've been compromising too much. It gives you the space to evaluate the dynamics and decide if the connection is still aligned with your values and goals. Sometimes it's only through absence that we can truly understand whether a relationship is worth pursuing or whether we've been settling for less than we deserve. Finally, growth through absence encourages mutual respect. When you step back, you're not abandoning the relationship. You're setting a boundary that prioritizes your emotional health and well-being. This teaches the other person that they cannot take your time, attention, or energy for granted. If they care about the relationship, they will take the initiative to meet you halfway, showing you that they value the connection enough to put in the effort. This kind of mutual respect is the foundation of any healthy, lasting relationship. In the dance of human relationships, where connection, effort, and emotions are constantly at play, the act of stepping back, of creating space and embracing silence, becomes not a retreat, but a powerful act of growth and self-respect. The keynotes we've explored shed light on how space, silence, emotional independence, and absence are not only tools for understanding the other person, but also for deepening our understanding of ourselves. By stepping back, we give ourselves the invaluable gift of perspective. We break free from the constant noise of communication and allow both parties the space to reflect, recalibrate, and assess what truly matters. In doing so, we shift the balance from dependency to mutual respect and from reactive behaviors to conscious, thoughtful actions. Through this process, we create fertile ground for genuine connection and growth as both individuals recognize the value of their time, attention, and emotional investment. For those on the receiving end, the absence of constant contact can be a catalyst for reflection and clarity. It disrupts the comfortable patterns that can lead to complacency, forcing the person to reassess their feelings and their level of investment in the relationship. In this space of silence, genuine appreciation can bloom, and the pursuit of the relationship becomes driven by true desire, not obligation. Ultimately, the power lies in the balance between presence and absence. The space you create allows the relationship to evolve from a place of neediness to one of choice. By taking a step back, you assert that your worth is not based on how much you give or how available you are, but on the strength of your own identity and emotional independence. In doing so, you not only invite growth into your life, but also foster a healthier, more meaningful dynamic in your relationships. In relationships, it's often the moments of absence that bring about the greatest growth, because they are the moments that allow both people to truly see the value in what they have, to understand their own needs and boundaries, and to decide whether to move forward with intention and respect. Embrace these moments of silence, space, and distance, not as a loss,